When you start running Google Ads, Google tells you to set up conversion tracking. What it doesn't tell you is which conversions to actually track, why it matters, or that you've got more options than the one it hands you by default. That's the part that decides your campaigns work or burn through your budget, and you're left wondering why. The problem is rarely that you have a tracking problem, it's that your setup is missing the conversions that actually matter. This could be a $100 a day problem, or for some of my clients, tens of thousands a day. When the campaign doesn't perform, you chase signal failures or bots, where in reality, the problem was the goal setup all along. I set up conversion tracking for e-commerce brands for a living. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to connect the right conversion goals into Google Ads. Set your primary and secondary events, turn on enhanced conversions, and verify the whole thing is firing the right way. So a common misconception when you're going into Google Ads is that you could just create an account and start running your ads. Reality then strikes when you come into the tool and you have to set up your conversion events. And there's multiple ways to do it. There's multiple types of conversion events. You have to bucket them in the right places. Maybe you have to make sure that there is the right conventions and data flowing into it. After it's set up, there could be an error preventing you from being able to use that conversion. So you really have to have an understanding coming in, like, what is my brand doing? What is my business doing? How do I want to run these ads and convert sales? Where I really care about page views, bounce rate, and interaction? Or is this something that is actually a performance-driven campaign? Like, I need to get email signups because I'm going to have a live event and I want to be able to email people before it happens. This is like a preview to get the first notification. Or am I going to be doing a purchase conversion success? So I have items on my account. I'm an e-commerce brand and I want to make sure that I'm optimizing all of my ads to sell products. Or am I a subscription-based service and I want to understand how guests are coming and stopping subscriptions, creating new ones, subscribing up or down? All of those things are information that you can send it to this tool to optimize campaigns for first acquisitions, return buyers, lapsed buyers who you want to have come back again. And all of that is done by setting up the right type of conversions for the right campaigns. The other thing to note is, like, all of these events are a point in time. So you want to be able to future-proof yourself a little bit and have some more information here to start than later. Google optimizes best with volume and repeated information and events over time. So even if you're not initially going to launch a campaign for email signups, you might want to have signups in here so in a couple months, by the time you're ready, you can launch on the day of and not have to wait a couple weeks after for enough data to come in to be successful when you launch. There may be something in here that is not useful immediately, but could be a future plan. That's the type of thing that we take into account when we do these setups. So when you go into ads.google.com, you're going to come into the primary landing page of the site, and you're going to want to go to the goals section on the left-hand navigation, and you can just click on summary. The summary is going to bring you into, if you have an event set up, your list with some information at the top that's going to be explaining to you what your sales pathways are. But then if you're not, it's going to be a blank screen and it's going to start prompting you with a tutorial how to set things up. You can see I have a bunch of events already set up in here. If I go into my purchases, you'll see a couple different purchases in here, and you'll see a conversion source. One says website and one says GA4. So you'll see in this purchase event, for example, we have conversion sources. One is on the website and one is from Google Analytics 4. And it's important to understand how these work. So you'll see a primary and a secondary in here. That basically is how Google is looking at those events and in the campaign goal setup, how it is optimizing those. The secondary event is going to be providing more information, backfills to help improve things and give it a secondary frame of reference. But the primary goal is the one that it's going to optimize against your performance goals. So that could be click-through rate, that could be impressions, that could be ROAS. That's why setting the primary in each of these sections is important. You can set up primary in each of these and then overlap them, or you can set up primary in one of them and that's what you assign to the campaign. All of this is part of the strategy in setting up the ad information to make sure that the campaign will perform the best it can. Now, when you're setting up these goals in here, all of them are going to have a data-driven attribution model. The key to understanding the source coming through and which you set up as primary is also important. So both Google Ads and both Google Analytics have data-driven attribution models. They optimize themselves in different ways. When you're in Google Analytics, it doesn't have all the placement information that you have in Google Ads reporting. So it's really optimizing on true source medium campaign and some of the connected data sets that you bring into the tool. So it's not really going to be the place that's optimizing your ads. So you'll still want your ad source pixel to help do all of that work. But what it does do is it gives you a common source of reference to make sure that when you're looking at potential errors, one of the questions that come up is, am I not getting purchase revenue correctly? Because if you're using the same optimization pixel for ads and Google Analytics, it's basically just passing that data through on the same source. So if you have a bug in one, you're going to have a bug in both. It's not going to be something you have to hunt down in one place or another. It really just helps streamline things a little bit. There are some limitations to it. So for instance, remarketing, better information comes through from the ads tags, including new versus returning user. Also, enhanced conversion is better coming through there. It's really just a combination of understanding the goals and the performances the way that this is set up correctly. The next part is something that tutorials often skip over, but it's really important for the enhancement of your campaigns. It adds in the ability to personalize and understand how users are repeating on certain things, and that will be the enhanced conversion portion. Unlike each individual event, you only have to set it up once and it's good for the entire account. So I'm just going to go into the same section of goals and conversion summary, but I'm going to click on settings this time. And under settings, you'll have a section called advanced conversion for leads and advanced conversions. These are eventually going to get merged together. I know it's a little confusing right now, so just follow the enhanced conversion section. In here, you'll have first the box that you should turn on enhanced conversion. And there's a call out here that you need to make sure that you have your consent settings set up and your anonymization of any data you sent through to be corrected first. That's just a table stakes for any of this. You want to make sure that you're protecting your customers as much as you can while still offering them the best ads experience. The next thing you're going to do is look at this drop down here. There's 3 different ways to look at this, and it's a little hard to understand if you're just looking at it briefly. The Google tag is basically the Google pixel itself. So if you're putting an ads pixel on your site and you don't have Google Tag Manager or you have Google Analytics, this is the G tag that you're putting on for Google Ads, and you can set it up to use that as the source that is detecting this. The second is Google Tag Manager. That's the one we're using, and there is a specific tag that allows user data to flow through, and we'll show you that in the setup. And then last but not least is Google Ads API, where you can actually have events send through information live from your website to an endpoint. There's a little bit more setup here with conversion IDs and click-through IDs to make sure that it's accurately accessing, but this is just one more way that you can send it through directly into the tool versus using the Google Pixel or Google Tag Manager. Now that we have our events set up, we have the same model working on both Google Ads and Google Analytics, and we confirm that we have enhanced conversions enabled. Now we have to check to make sure that all of our pixels are working correctly. There's a couple different ways to do this testing. You can check the raw data layer itself. You can do a browser extension. We have our own little tool here that we can use to see events happen in real time as an easy way to read that the event information is correct through the data layer. And then finally, you can use the tool that is preferred now with all the different ways that events can go through the system, the Tag Assistant. Now, when you're working with Tag Assistant, this is really great on more standard websites. You may have a little bit of problems with this with Shopify because of the way that they sandbox their tracking interface. For most sites, the Tag Assistant is going to be the most reliable way for you to look at your events coming through the system. Now, each pixel tool does have their own, like Meta has one or Pinterest or things like that, but Google Ads, because it's part of the Google ecosystem, the Google Tag Assistant is where you're going to be inspecting those. Now, which goes right for your business comes down to how your customers really buy. That's the piece we work out with our clients at Zamarts. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. If you want us to look at your setup, the link's on the screen. Either way, stick with me because the ideas that tie this whole setup together is next. So we're just going to go to the website and we'll pop open the Tag Assistant. And then we're going to want to make sure that everything here just looks fine. We can see our demo properties coming through. And then we're just going to click on Troubleshoot Tag. Troubleshoot Tag is basically going to enable debug mode on here, and it's going to reload your page so the first events are coming through. So I'm going to look here on the page and I'll see that my first first event that is coming through is basically my window load, message, view promotions, etc. And then if I look at my data layer, I'll see that I'll have my view promotions and my page view, which is my window load. So we're going to go in and check an event that we're actually going to be handling for Google Ads. So we'll click on a product, and here we'll see that we are going to do a product view. So here's our view item, and we can see all the information that we sent to the data layer on this product. We're going to want to open the tag assistant and find that same event name in here. So view item, and then we'll want to make sure that all of these values have sent. Now, you may not see them in the tags fired for a couple reasons. You could have configured the tag wrong, the data layer event could have been messed up, payload too large for it to be sent through, or your consent settings may not have been correct to allow it to show up. So in here, we'll see the ads remarketing event and ads conversion event. So we'll click on the ads remarketing, and we'll just check to see that all the information that we're expecting is showing up in the tool here. So for the most part, we're seeing everything is looking correct. We have a couple custom values in here. We have a couple of the actual product data that we sent in here. So this looks to be correct for ads remarketing. And then we'll open ads conversion, and we'll just check through here. We don't have a tracking ID. Shipping cost looks to have a bug here. So that's something that we would have to go in and just make sure that there's not a typo in the shipping cost. And everything else looks to be pretty fine. There are some nuances in here that we might want to clean up or see if they're an issue, but generally speaking, this is how you would go in and check that the event is firing properly. The last thing that we'll check, because this is where enhanced e-commerce is really important, in our tag setup, we have a user provided data tag. And this is what's going to allow us to send user provided data when it is an event that exposes it. So that could be login, newsletter sign up, account creation, purchase. We could have a lead form. And then on the purchase item we sell, we have encrypted data for all of these fields that a user could send. Now, of course, this is something that a guest could opt out of with proper consent tools, but this is how enhanced e-commerce works when you have the data layer portion set up. So to make sure that this is working, we have to actually fire an event that has some sort of information. We're just going to go through and do a little add to bag here, go to checkout. We have some dummy data in here set up. So now we have our purchase event with everything we just tried to check out with. And if we go into our tool, we're going to look at the purchase event here and make sure that we have our user provided data and all this information. If I click the user provided data, you'll see the hashed information for all these values that we had queued up, send through. This will allow us to make sure that we have the right information for enhanced conversions. The best way we like to look at this is look at the tag data on the page that is being sent to Google Tag Manager, and then check that the events are firing and go in and look at those. Now, if you look at the events here, we're seeing just a basic success value sent. Kind of the gotcha between the Google Ads pixels and some of the others. There's not a great way to test that this is going into Google Ads itself being 100% correct. Sometimes there are things that look like they're in order, but may have a slight issue. And this won't show up until potentially this tag is live and you're seeing those warnings show up in your tagging area. When you're in your goals, conversions, and summaries, you'll start seeing potential issues that are exposed through here, like needs attention. And it'll give you more specific instructions on what you need to correct in that tag or event to make it work correctly. These are just showing needs attention because there's no events flowing through because this is a demo account. Now, I know that I said that basically you want to see this go live and test for errors there in some instances, but you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence upfront, just like we saw that shipping error, to correct as many things in a lower testing environment before it goes into production. Both Google Tag Manager will allow you to do that and make sure that it publishes in a test environment and can be tested thoroughly against all your normal use cases. However, not many companies set up a test Google Ads account because Google will probably shut it down a little bit after inactive activity anyway. Really, your first launch into your pixels, you want to make sure that you have enough runway before your campaigns to get enough information on those events and correct any error that comes up before you launch your actual campaign. So one of the most common errors that we see has to do with your data sanity. So it could be that your enhanced conversion doesn't include at least an email or phone number. It needs one of those two things to have an enhanced conversion take place. So you can send an enhanced conversion on an email sign up and send that email through, or on the purchase event where you could send through much more information because there is an address involved. But if you do not send either an email or phone, it's not going to be registered an enhanced conversion to optimize. The second thing we see is on remarketing tags. If you're trying to remarket product information and product ads, you need to make sure that that the information you're mapping in your pixel is going to use the standard product ID or is set up to send that product ID in that standard slot through the ads tag, because that ID number needs to match one of three in your Merchant Center catalog. It could either match the item ID, the item group ID, or the display ads ID. If it does not match any of those, the two event and the platform will not be able to do a remarketing on a product basis. The last thing we see is really just people not setting up their campaigns to optimize for the right thing. If I'm not optimizing for the product sale, since it could be a more expensive item, I would want to optimize for the booking appointment. Let's say I'm a middle of the road jewelry brand and I sell a lot of charms. So I have a base bracelet that many people have, but they don't really purchase them that often. I have a lot of sales. I include those charms and bracelets as part of a set. Instead of having a product campaign optimized for purchases, I may want to have it optimized for add to cart. I want to have those customers who are going to add 2, 3, 4 charms to their cart be more important than those that are purchasing one bangle that they'll probably get free with the charms anyway. So really understanding how your campaign is set up and what metrics are going to be driving that is super important for two different very use cases in a similar category of sales. So really, if you're optimizing for your goal and your sales channel and how your customer is actually interacting with your brand, you can really pay off a dividend in how that actual strategy is set up beforehand and not an afterthought or trying to figure out why things aren't performing afterwards. So now that we've looked at everything, it really is a combination of factors that decide whether your campaigns and ads are going to be effective. Even at the technical and planning side, before you get into the things that you can test more heavily, like creative or language or something like that, we've looked at first ad setup, what events are going to be important, how they should be triggering, how they should be connected to your ads. We made sure that we have enhanced conversion set up, and that will allow us to optimize really for the same user across multiple sessions and product reviews. We've made sure that we've gone into the actual tag, looked at the data, put it through inspection, made sure that the event information is coming through, the events actually firing and going to the tool. We made sure we launched our campaign early enough so that we can spot issues and optimize before we really start putting money into our tools. So that's the conversion tracking done the right way. The right goals, connected correctly, and verified. But the tracking is only worth anything if you can read what it's telling you and turn it into decisions. So once your ad tags are live, watch my walkthrough on how to actually analyze Google Analytics for e-commerce next, because that's where all of this tracking data turns into calls that grow your business.